say good morning, everyone. So I am Justine Monleon, one of the reporter of the Group 3. And you can call me Teacher Jess. So this report centers on the importance of oral history as a means of preserving personal narratives and first-hand accounts. So through this study, we aim to document valuable stories that provide insight into cultural, social, and historical experiences. So, by recording and analyzing these narratives, we contribute to a deeper understanding of the past and ensure that these voices are remembered and appreciated by future generations. We're going to talk about what is oral history. So, oral history, it is a method of collecting and studying historical information through recorded interviews with individuals who have personal experience of that specific or of that significant events. It focuses on preserving and understanding the perspective of memories of people, communities, and participants in the past. So it is oral history. It is both an ancient and modern methods of historical inquiry because it is involved like I said earlier, it is the gathering, interpreting, and of course it is the voices and memories of an individual in that particular place or in that particular areas. No. So and also oral history, it is involves interviewing individuals who have that knowledge or kung sino man yung naka-experience o who witness that. So of course, in oral history, it is used interviews like it is recorded interview like audio or video. And oral history, it is a primary source material. It provides the first-hand accounts. And oral history, it records personal experiences like the stories of our grandparents about the past. It is also valuable, but we should be careful since memories may not be always be accurate. What's in the oral history? So of course, the recorded interviews because oral history involve planned interviews between a narrator. So narrator, that's someone with a personal experience of a historical event, and an interviewer with the exchange recorded in audio or video. And of course, oral history, it is a primary sources. So why it is considered a primary sources? Because they are the original accounts from the time period being studied. So, it is a primary source because it provides first-hand accounts of events, experiences, and perspectives directly from the people who lived through them. So, just like come from straight from individuals who witnessed or participated in that historical events rather than being filtered through later analysis or interpretation. So it focused on personal experiences because like I said earlier, they provide a unique personal angle on history, often giving voice to everybody. Now let's tackle about why we need to understand oral history. So, why do we need to understand? Of course, the first one is oral history helps us round out the story of the past by, of course, by capturing personal accounts that are often missing from official reports. So, in addition, by adding personal voices and experiences that are often missing from the written records. So it also highlights the perspectives of the people and the communities that are often overlooked in traditional histories, such as the women, the workers, and indigenous groups. So, of course, by including these personal narratives, oral history creates a fuller and more meaningful understanding of the past. One, the second why we need to understand oral history. So the second one is oral history helps us understand how individuals and communities experience the forces of history. So by that, so it helps us understand how individuals and communities experience the forces of history by capturing their personal stories, memories, and reflections about the specific events. Instead, if only focusing on major political or economic changes, oral history shows how these larger forces affected people's everyday lives like emotions and relationship. So through first-hand accounts, we learned how individuals responded to challenges, adapted to change, and made sense of the world around them. So by listening these voices, we gain a deeper and more human understanding of historical events from the perspective of those who actually lived through them. One, so oral history teaches us what has changed and what has stayed the same over time. So it means that oral history shows us what has changed and what has stayed the same over time by capturing personal stories across generation, because it reveals how people's lives, values, and communities have evolved while also persevering traditionals, customs, and experiences that have remained constant. By also that, by preparing these narratives, we gain a clear understanding of both the progress and the continuity in in our society. So the last one is oral history preserves for future generations a sound portrait of who we are in the present and what we remember about the past. So what do you mean by that? So it is means that we can remember the past by, of course, by recording the voices, the stories, and experiences of people today. So these personal accounts capture not only the facts but also the past events, the emotions and the values and the cultural traditions that shape our identity. So, by documenting how we remember and interpret our experiences, so oral history creates a living record that the future generations can listen to and learn from it. So, it is ensured that the memories, the lessons, and the wisdom of the past are not lost. So, of course, since it is recorded, so the present we can see what's in the past and they can learn from it. So in oral history, we must address, because there's a strength and weaknesses. There's a good and bad. There's advantages and disadvantages. Of course, in oral history, there's strength and weaknesses that we must to remember, we must to address. The first one is the incorporation of human emotions and personal depth. So, what do you mean by that? So, in oral history, captures not just the facts, but also we should not forget that it is not just the facts, but also the emotions, the everyday experiences, the our success, failures, joys, and sorrows directly from a person's own words. So this allows for richer, more nuanced, and thicker descriptions of people and places and times which traditionally historical records lacked or then lacked. The second one is oral history is egalitarian nature or history from the bottom up. So when we say egalitarian, it is means that promoting or based on the principle that all people are equal and deserve equal rights and opportunities. So gives a voice to everyone. We have freedom to speech. Oh, we have the freedom to speak because oral history is not limited to elites, the famous figures of or official documents. It includes the voices of all parts of the society, especially the ordinary people who are often absent from the traditional historical narratives. So this helps fill the gaps in the historical records and broadens our understanding of history beyond the perspective of the influential. So that's the strength in the oral history that we must address. Now, let's talk about the weaknesses because we also need to address the weaknesses of oral history because we in oral history we should have this holistic perspective point of view, right? So, having intro the virtues of oral history and generating new knowledge about our history, we must also acknowledge its weaknesses. So, we already know that oral history is based on personal experiences, but sometimes we ask questions like, how accurate are these reminiscences, right? And second, does the interviewer overly influence the interviewee? Because some people tend to recall themselves in a better light than is accurate. Because memory also can play tricks on the truth. Because of the inaccuracies of memories, oral history must be evaluated as any other historical sources. So the information must be evaluated and judged for its accuracy. So that's why we need to address the weaknesses of oral history. So by that, so in order to know, the first one is the subjectivity and bias. So since oral history is based on personal recollections, it can be influenced by the individual's memory, emotions, or biases. So people may unintentionally distort events based on their personal feelings or experiences. So additionally, memories can fade or change over time. That's leading to inaccurate or incomplete accounts. The second one is accuracy and the reliability of memories. So oral history is vulnerable to inaccurate recollections due to memories fallibility. So people may remember events differently than they actually occurred, often recalling themselves in more favorable light. So since memory can be influenced by emotions, time, and personal biases, the truth of this reminiscence can be uncertain. So that's the weaknesses in oral history that we need, or we make sure that we can address both strengths and weaknesses because we have a multiple perspective in terms of oral history, right? In conclusion to that part about strength and weaknesses of oral history. So, oral history offers unique strengths by capturing personal, first-hand accounts that provide valuable insights into the social and emotional aspects of history, often giving a voice to those overlooked in traditional records. However, it is also has weaknesses, just like I said earlier, such as the potential of memory distortion and biases. So, as personal recollection can be influenced by time, of course, the emotion, and the cultural factors. But despite these challenges, oral history remains a valuable tool when used alongside other historical methods. It offers a richer and a more diverse understanding of the past. So now let's talk about the theory. So there are a lot of theory, but we have the main theory. This is what we call the memory theory. So when we say memory theory, it explores how people remember and recall past experiences, focusing on the process that shape memory, its accuracy, and the ways memories are constructed over time. So it examines that role of both individual and collective memory. It highlights how memories can be influenced by personal biases, emotions, and eternal factors such as the cultural and the social context. So, in the context of oral history, memory theory is crucial. Why? Because it helps us understand how interviewees recall events, how memories may change over time, and the impact of these changes on the stories they tell. Memory theory also looks at how group memories are shared and passed down, and how societal narratives shape individual recollections of the past. It also emphasizes that memory is not a perfect reflection of reality, but it is a dynamic process influenced by personal and social factors, which can help or hinder our understanding of the historical events. And people's memories are shaped by personal experiences and emotion. So their stories may change over time. But of course, like I said earlier, we must be in our holistic point of view because um our memories, or if we interview a person, of course, there's a lot of multiple perspective, but it has the same idea, but it is a more multiple perspective that we should know. So the second theory is, we can call it the narrative theory. So narrative theory and oral history examines how personal stories and testimonies are structured, and how individuals shape their memories of past events into coherent narratives. So this approach highlights the importance of storytelling and understanding historical experiences, as it recognizes that um, people make sense of their lives by organizing events into stories with beginnings, middles, and ends. So in oral history, narrative theory helps us understand how interviewees select, interpret, and recount their experiences, often influenced by cultural, social, and emotional factors. It also emphasizes the role of the storyteller's perspective and how the story is constructed, not just a historical account, but as a reflection of identity, um, memory, and meaning. So by analyzing these narratives, we gain deeper insights into how individuals and communities remember and interpret their past, because oral history is told in the form of stories or narratives. So when we say narrative, it is in a chronological way, right? So, and how person tells their story reveals their personal views and values. That's the narrative theory. So the last one is, in theory, the last one theory of oral history is postmodernism. So postmodernism argues that there is no single absolute truth in history. Instead, there are multiple perspectives, just like I said earlier, and many versions of the truth, depending on who is telling the story. So that's why we need to address its weaknesses, right? Because there are many visions of the story that we need to see or we need to look. That's why we need to be more careful and in looking more accurate version of story, right? So in the context of oral history, postmodernism theory challenges traditional views of historical truth by emphasizing that Memory and personal narratives are subjectives and shaped by individual experiences, biases, and social context. Postmodernism. So, postmodernism rejects the idea of objective, singular truth and instead highlights the diversity of perspectives that exist within historical accounts. It also encourages that recognition that oral history are not just straightforward that just not straightforward facts, but are influenced by the storytellers, personal interpretations, cultural backgrounds, and social influences. So this approach calls for a more critical examination of those of who controls the narrative and how power dynamics shape the way history is recorded and remember remembered. So postmodernism in oral history emphasizes the importance of listening, right? So it emphasizes or it encourages the importance of listening to multiple voices and acknowledges the different versions of the events can coexist, each offering a valid interpretations of the past. It allows for a more inclusive and diverse understanding of history, where no single narrative is considered the the definitive version. So that's why we need to be more holistic, right? We need to see the more version of the story, not just the one version, right? Because there's always a version in the story, right? So, in the conclusion, so these theories and concepts together show that oral history it is not just about recording facts. It is about understanding how individuals and communities remember, make a sense of, and narrate their past. So, that's for my part. So I hope um you you guys learned something from it. So thank you and God bless. Thank you for listening, everyone.